Time has expired. I now recognize a friend from Florida, no stranger to emergency management, Mr. Moskowitz.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and thank you for allowing me to wave on to the committee. Madam Administrator, thank you for joining us today. As the only former emergency management director in Congress, I can tell you I thoroughly appreciate not just what you do, but the 20,000 plus people at FEMA do. Lord knows, based on all of the events that we have had over the last several years, COVID or excluding COVID, the burnout rate at FEMA, because it never stops for these people. And whether it was people in my EOC or folks that you deploy around the country, they're away from their families, serving the country, helping communities respond, and then helping communities recover. And so, one of the things that, and I've talked to previous administrators about this, and you don't have to comment, is that I think, Mr. Chairman, it's time actually that the FEMA administrator go back to being a cabinet position. I think that it's time that we put back what was there before 9/11, and that the FEMA administrator have a direct report to the President of the United States, because as we've seen, whether it's on the West Coast, on the East Coast, in the middle of the country, on the Gulf of Mexico, FEMA is busier and busier than ever, and that's going to continue. And so one of the things I wanted to first talk about is how the DRF is running out of money. And so I filed a bill with my colleagues across the aisle, bicameral, with Senator Scott and Senator Rubio, to make sure that we can replenish the DRF, because we shouldn't have to wait for the money to run out in the middle of hurricane season. We should be proactive. One of the things I want to talk about where I think FEMA can improve is in temporary housing. I think, and I'd love to hear your comments on this, Madam Administrator, I think FEMA has struggled for a long time how to run a housing program. And so, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, should we be block granting that to the states and letting the states run those housing programs? Senator, block grants that happened with citrus or timber in Florida after Hurricane Michael and Hurricane Irma.
Congressman, I think that, we see across the country that there are housing challenges in our blue sky days. And these housing challenges are only exacerbated during the time of a disaster. I think one of the best things that we can do is work with our communities where we know that they're going to have these challenges, and help them with pre-disaster housing plans and how we're going to be able to work together as a federal, state, and local government to support these housing initiatives. And I'm happy to say that we currently have an initiative underway in partnership with HUD, with 4 states, with New Jersey, Louisiana, Montana, and Washington, to do just that, to work with these communities and help them build these plans so we can implement housing faster. I don't disagree. There's a lot of improvement that needs to be made within the way that we can help these communities get back on their feet and into homes faster. I'm very hopeful that this program is going to give us some ways forward and some best practices, as we've seen some of the creative ways that they have been implementing already through the different disasters that we've had over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and potentially less expensive. I mean, look, you work with all 50 state emergency management directors. You know their programs, you know who they are. And there's a question of whether or not FEMA could deploy the dollars and let the states run some of those programs, because I think some of the states can do it faster. I want to talk about COVID really quickly, Mr. Chairman, because FEMA really came in and saved the day. As someone who ran a COVID operation, ran it for someone across the aisle, so we did it on a bipartisan basis as I was the emergency management for Governor DeSantis, I can tell you that FEMA's efforts in both administrations, in the Trump administration and in the Biden administration, I mean, without FEMA's logistical support of the other agencies, I don't know that the federal response from a logistical standpoint would have been as good, because look, they have the experience in fires and tornadoes and hurricanes. And so when we were opening up testing sites and vaccine sites, how to run that logistical operation, how to get those resources deployed, how to do all that. I just want to thank FEMA. I want to thank all the people who work at your agency. I always believe people in emergency management, quite frankly, are taken for granted, because during blue skies, no one cares about us. They don't want to invest in us. But when gray skies happen and they need us, then all of a sudden they expect us to perform. And that's another thing that I think that the federal government can do better in. I think it's time that we invest more dollars into FEMA on a proactive basis to be working on better mitigation programs. It's shown that mitigation dollars save us money on the back end. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing me to wave on to the committee, and I yield back.